Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat commentary here on this Wednesday. It is Hump Day, and no better way to get you through than Bob Kravitz and Rick Bozich. So they join us now, Hall of Famer. Rick, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good down here in lovely Louisville, where there's never a dull moment. We're on
Man,
athletic director watch duty, so if I get a text message in the next 5 minutes, you'll understand why.
Yeah, you'll be like Schefter. You'll be checking your phone, running, writing your story. It'll be great.
To send it to.
See, Siri's asking me who I want to send a text
message. Is Chris Mack back from his suspension yet?
Yeah, he's coached 2 games. They lost to Michigan State, and then they beat NC State on Saturday, and he's coaching his first home game Friday night against the DePaul Blue Demons.
So they've got that going for them. Since we've last spoken, Indiana has hired Walt Bell as its offensive coordinator for football, and it has been the most lukewarm hire that I've had for a coach in quite a while. It's I can't, like I said off the air, I can't say anything bad. I can just look at statistics. His record as a head coach certainly does not leave a lot of warm and fuzzies for you, but a lot of OCs were not great head coaches. I always use Cam Cameron as an example of someone who was great in the role of OC, but did not succeed as a head coach. But Walt Bell was probably not the first name on their list. But this is, man, at this time, these coaches are going everywhere. The changes that are happening are nuts right now. It's crazy. This could be, and it is probably the craziest time ever, because the money that's being offered, these $80-90 million contracts that are going out, this is the craziest time. And you got this name, image, likeness, which is no longer name, image, likeness, because every scholarship offensive lineman at Texas getting $50,000, that's not name, image, likeness. And to me, seriously, it's not.
It's a scam.
It doesn't even matter. It is. It's an inducement. And it goes against the very rule that they put up. So college sports is over as we knew it 2 years ago, which kind of sucks. I'll be honest with you, Bob.
Well, you know what I find interesting is all these mega contracts going out to coaches just 1 year after the pandemic put everybody on edge in terms of finances. And, you know, they had a lot of schools cut quote unquote minor sports or non-revenue producing sports. And now all of a sudden,
how many employees?
Question, Dustin.
Exactly. So, yeah, I don't understand where this money is coming from. Well, I do know where the money is coming from, but I just find it kind of distasteful.
You, Bob?
What's that?
Tell us. Is it you? You can tell us.
No. Now, if we build a hockey arena at Indiana University, it will be the Kravitz Coliseum. I'm just saying. Fred Glass once told me, I said, how come we don't have a hockey team? He said, if you write me a check for about $80 million, we'll build you an arena. So I'm saving my cash.
80 million. Holy. Well, you know what? They need a new assembly hall.
I agree.
They could have taken that 40 million, and then you could have given them 40 million only, and it wouldn't have cost you 80. It just would have cost you 40. And then there's your Kravitz Coliseum. And it's hell of a lot easier to spell Kravitz than it is Simon Skjodt.
Skjodt.
Wow.
Oh man, not a lot easier, honestly. But yeah, I am not look, I went to college at IU. I was in that arena a million times. I think it's done. I mean, they need to blow that sucker up. What do you think, Rick? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think they should have built a new arena instead of the renovation really didn't add that much to it. The luxury suites or whatever, the suites, whatever, those are not even good seats. I don't even know why you'd want to sit there. And there's so many. I mean, the balcony, nobody wants to sit in the balcony. And even if you sit in the lower arena up high, it's not good. And it's just not a great basketball arena for viewers unless you've got some of the better seats. So yeah, they should have built a new one. But now that they've renovated it and they got Zeller and Oladipo to donate money to redo the locker rooms, I don't see that happening for a long time.
Nor do I.
Sad. Walt Bell is named the new offensive coordinator, like I said, at Indiana. and very lukewarm, so much so that Josh Hoover, the prized football quarterback recruit, not shortly thereafter announced that he was decommitting, and then within 10 minutes he committed to TCU. And I talked to Josh, and he said that the OC didn't have any bearing on that. And it's kind of hard to believe that when it came right after, and Nick Sheridan was the guy who was recruiting Josh, who knew that. So, but that's a major loss to Indiana, in my opinion. I think this kid is going to be a hell of a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he's got good credentials, but you couldn't keep Nick Sheridan as the offensive coordinator just because of Josh Hoover.
Oh, no, I wouldn't suggest that.
But, I agree with you. I mean, the Walt Bell hire, if you look at some of his numbers, makes you pause and say, is he really the guy to fix Indiana's offense? Is he going to be a Kevin Wilson type guy who could do things to get points out of an offense that had inferior talent? And I don't worry about what happened at UMass, because UMass is probably the worst job in FBS football. They used to be an FCS team, and they can't compete at the level they're at. But his numbers at Florida State, where he was the OC for a year, and then Willie Taggart got fired, and his numbers before that for 2 seasons, where he was, I believe, where was he at the 2 seasons before that?
Who's that?
Between Arkansas State and Florida State, he was somewhere for 2 seasons, and his numbers weren't that great there. So it makes you wonder, whether he can get the job done.
Yeah, and in Florida State, well, that was kind of a weird time for them when he was there. It was 2017, I think, when he was there. So
2018, he was there.
Was Francois hurt at that time?
I think he was the quarterback, but he didn't play that well.
So, and then that's under, of course, Walt Bell,
Right.
who was the quarterback's coach, will be the quarterback's coach, and where Indiana saw a lot of fall off as well. So now you've got to look at Indiana needs a quarterback. They have to hit the portal, Bob. I know that they have Jack Tuttle and Donovan McCulley, but I'm not convinced that either of those guys are the guy. You've got to get Donovan McCulley in the season. There you go.
He was at Maryland for 2 seasons.
I don't know. You don't think that Donovan McCulley is the guy moving forward?
I do.
Yeah, I do too. I look, he didn't do much of anything this year, but I mean, hell, he wasn't expected to do much of anything this year. I think moving forward, they're going to be okay with McCulley. I mean, I could be wrong.
If he can throw the ball, of course, he has to be protected, and maybe maybe a different coach is going to help with that. But his passing game really lacked this year, and you saw that when you brought in Grant Gremmel, the walk-on, who had more success throwing the ball. Now he can't run the ball like Donovan, but so there has to be improvement
until they fix the offensive line. I mean,
exactly.
You put McVay or Cliff Kingsbury or whatever in charge of the offense, and it's not going to be very productive. I don't think they got to get better players on the offensive line, and I think they need a new coach on the offensive line. I mean, Darren Hiller's been there for 3 or 4 years, and the guy who preceded him, who I think was that Greg Fry. I mean, they developed Feeney and Knight and Jason Spriggs and these dudes, and
NFL players.
Their offensive line isn't getting it done. I mean, I don't understand why a move hasn't been made there. Maybe it'll be made after signing day, because I think a lot of schools don't like to change coaches before signing day because guys have relationships with assistant coaches. But right. I think it's fair to ask, why more changes haven't been made on offense.
Yeah, I'm very curious as that, Bob. I would have thought that. My only think is that or what Rick just said, and giving a little rope to the new offensive coordinator, where they don't do that on defense, because Tom Allen's a defensive guy, and when Charlton Warren came in, basically he was told, hey, you're going to run this defense, and here's your guys, your coaches. On offense, I think that Tom Allen's a little more hands-off because he's not an offensive guy. So He may give him a little more rope, but I'm a little surprised that they didn't make the move already at the O line, but what Rick said makes complete sense because what happened with Josh Hoover, you don't want that happening again.
Right. Now I tend to think that coaches, assistant coaches are a little bit overrated. I mean, look, if you don't have an offensive line and Freifogel's not playing well and you're not getting, you're down to a bunch of walk-ons in the backfield, I'm not sure that Vince Lombardi could have done anything with that group, to be honest with you. So, I mean, look, yeah, I agree. They needed to change at OC. They need to change the offensive line coach. But man, it's all about recruiting. It's all about getting the right guys in there, and that's about as far as it goes.
And a good friend of mine actually used to work with me at WLKY in Louisville, Rick, says you will hear this a lot. You are what you believe from the new OC. Glenn's down in Florida State now, down in Tallahassee, so he's some experience with there. You are what you believe is going to be the new mantra.
Well, I believe I'm 6'4", 210. So, so that doesn't exactly. That's not exactly right.
Well, they're starting out with the wrong way, man. Starting out on the wrong step. Indiana travels to Wisconsin tonight, Rick, a place that has been like a tomb for them for quite some time after owning Wisconsin for some 15 years. There's just been a lid on that place. Indiana has lost games in overtime, and it's just a weird thing. But a program like Indiana should not have a streak like this against anybody.
I agree 1,000%. Bob and I are old enough to remember when it looked like a misprint if you said that Indiana lost to Wisconsin or Northwestern. I mean, there were like a decade-long stretch where they didn't lose to them. For the most part over these it's since 98, right? Wisconsin's just been better. I mean, Bo Ryan was there, and he established a program, and I think Indiana got to the point where they were beaten before they even went in there, and they were inside the heads of the players and some of the coaches. And yeah, some of the games have been close, but some of them haven't been that close. And Wisconsin this year they had that early loss to Providence, and kind of they lost a bunch of players from last season. They weren't supposed to be one of the better teams in the Big Ten, but at this point they're looking like, one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the Big Ten.
And last night we saw a Michigan team take on Nebraska that Indiana just played, and Michigan just absolutely throttled Nebraska at home.
5 minutes.
Like 70, maybe 74 to 104. I can't remember the score, but Michigan scored 104 or something, and there was 69. And now their coach did say that he's never had a team quit on him like that, but that's a team that Indiana just played, and they played Indiana tough at home. I don't know if that's an indication on how far Indiana has still to go, probably, and Michigan is further ahead, but we'll get an indication tonight. Indiana is playing a true road game. Syracuse is a road game, but the Carrier Dome is not that intimate. The Kohl Center, much more intimate situation.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of concerning signs looking at scores. You look at the way Michigan blasted Nebraska at Nebraska. Syracuse went into the Garden and got beat by Villanova by double figures. And a few weeks ago, I was last week or over the weekend, I think it was, the St. John's team that played Indiana down to a 1 or 2 point game played Kansas up in New York, and Kansas beat them by 20. Mm-hmm. So if you're into the comparative score things, there's some reason to wonder about how good Indiana is. They played better after the first 7 or 8 minutes against Nebraska. But what's concerning about that is they also had a slow start against Syracuse, and they also had a bunch of slow starts last season. So Mike Woodson has to be concerned about that and find some way to fix it, whether it's a change in the starting lineup or whatever. They need to start better, because against good teams, if you fall behind by 10, 14 points, you're not coming back.
Yeah, Miller Kopp has been one of those starters who hasn't seemed to produce a lot. I'm not saying he's not helping in other ways, but he hasn't produced as much as I thought that he would. And he's someone that maybe could come off the bench. I'm not sure. Tamar Bates has been a great spark off the bench for Indiana, and I'm not saying that you should maybe change that, because it's great to have that. You've got to have that second wave. What he talks about, and he likes to put a second unit in, and he wants them to play. And so you've got to have guys that you can't have too much fall off. But I'm thinking maybe Miller Kopp can be one of those guys that's traded out for someone, since they're not getting a lot of production there anyway. Bob?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I love Tamar Bates' game. You know who I've really come to like is Parker Stewart. Every time he shoots the ball, I think that sucker's going in. You know,
Well,
about
it's because you're half right.
I'm half right, you know, which is good for me. Good half right. But I really like Parker Stewart. I think Kopp is going to be useful at some point. He has a shooting stroke that would suggest he'd be able to make a decent percentage of them. But I see him as more of a bench guy, being kind of a designated shooter off the bench for sure. I think Indiana is who we thought they would be. You know, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. They're going to be in the middle of the Big Ten, I would suspect, and they're going to have a chance to make the tournament. And I don't think they've been, overwhelmingly, surprisingly good. I don't think they've been bad. I just think they are who we thought they would be, to quote Dennis Green.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bates is going to be a good player. At some point, he'll move into the lineup. I think the guy that they really need to get going even more is Xavier Johnson, and he can't be getting into foul trouble in every game.
Yeah, he's got to be able to stay on the floor.
Clearly their best point guard. When he goes out of the game, the offense, in my mind, bogs down. Finney still doesn't play with that like edge that Xavier Johnson plays with. He's tentative. The offense kind of bogs down. There's too much. It's too much like East and West instead of North and South. And I'd also like to see Anthony Leal get more time.
Yes, he was good the other night.
He looked good against Nebraska. He can make shots. He doesn't do dumb things. Maybe he's got some deficiencies on defense, but at least it seems like he's committed to playing defense. And I'd like to see him get more time going forward. And a game like this tonight, I think is really big for them, because that's one of the things. Beating a decent team on the road is one of the things they need to do to grow the program.
Yes.
I think over the last couple of years of Archie, when Indiana went on the road, they had that one win at Michigan State. But other than that, not really any wins on the road that you say, yeah, that's a nice win. And that's a step that you have to take to get your program better.
Absolutely. Looking at some of the numbers that jump out at me, Indiana shooting as a team, 37% from the 3-point arc, which that is staggering for Indiana fans to look at after the last few years. And you mentioned Parker Stewart. That's why I said you were half right, because he's nearly shooting 50%, Bob. 21 of 44. And that's just tremendous, because he's taken the most 3-point shots of anybody on the team. So if your leading shooter is having your leading percentage, that's a pretty damn good thing. And free throw shooting, their free throw shooting is at 70%. So that's where it needs to be. Rick, you mentioned the fouls. Xavier Johnson has had the most fouls on the team this year, 25 fouls total in 8 games, comes out to 3 fouls per game. Second behind him is Parker Stewart. So you got your guards that are kind of getting into foul trouble, which we saw in that Syracuse game, which really, really bit them in the butt. So is that just not being in the right position, or because I know Xavier Johnson is quick enough, is just not just making dumb plays? Some of those fouls are away from the basket, I know, are really dumb.
Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, if you're going to go anywhere in college basketball, especially in the tournament, you need exceedingly good guard play. And that's clearly and continues to be clearly where Indiana is lacking. Rob Finney, if he hasn't gotten it by now, he's never going to get it. I mean, he's a nice kid and he's got a decent game, but he just doesn't have that edge. Xavier Johnson's got that edge, but he's got a little too much edge, and I think he turns the ball over, he commits fouls. And that's why I just don't see Indiana, taking that next step toward maybe the upper reaches of the Big Ten because of their guard play.
Yeah, and I think Mike Woodson understands that, because if you look at the recruiting coming in for next year's class, who's the crown jewel? It's Jalen Hood-Scafino, who's a point guard and a bigger point guard. And then you also have CJ Gunn, another guard, a shooting guard from Indianapolis. Then he's already got 2 commitments in the class of 23. Once again, both guards. The kid Newton from Atlanta, who's sort of a combo guard, and the kid Cups from the Dayton area, who is sort of a leader, a guy. He's a point guard who can shoot and score, but he's got 4 guards coming in, because I think Mike Woodson and Dane Fife and the rest of the coaching staff knows they got to upgrade the talent at guard, and that's how you win in college basketball. They got 7 guards on this team, and I think they need to figure out, who are the 4 guys we're going to ride with and play them. And, at this point, overall, their guard talent is going to hold them back, I think, from being a really elite team, but it will decide whether they make the tournament or not. I agree with Bob. They're the middle of the pack in the Big Ten, and they're probably going to be a bubble team, and it's going to come down to late in the year whether they make the tournament or not.
Yep.
And a win at a place like Wisconsin will help that. Losing in Syracuse didn't help, but they'll have plenty of opportunities to win on the road going forward in the Big Ten. Bob, I know you cover the Pacers a lot, and a lot of talk about them in a rebuild mode already here as the early part of the season, as they've not gotten off to the start that they'd like to get off to. But names like Karis LeVert, Miles Turner, Sabonis that could possibly be on the trade block, that's a little surprising to hear.
First, you can call me Scoop. It's my once a decade scoop. Yes, they have decided that they are going to rebuild this sucker, and I think it's not a moment too soon. I think they wanted to see how they did during this homestand. They have a 6-game homestand, and I know that Kevin Pritchard and the front office and Rick Carlisle wanted to see how they did during this 6-game stretch. It started out poorly with 2 losses. They beat Washington, but they have reached the conclusion that it's time to blow this thing up. And it may not happen immediately, but by the trade deadline in February, there is every reason to believe that Karis LeVert will not be here. One of the 2 bigs will not be here, and maybe more guys. They have finally convinced Herb Simon, after several false starts, that they need to retool, rebuild, whatever word you want to use. It's time, because this group is going nowhere.
Yeah, I'm surprised that this early to see that because last year there was a lot of hope and with bringing him in, but new coach and same old deal.
Yeah,
So,
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. I mean, you brought in, you can't blame it on the coach anymore. They blamed it on Nate McMillan. They blamed it on Nate Bjorkgren. You can't blame it on Rick Carlisle. Not everything Rick does is brilliant, but look, he's got a ring. He's one of the most respected coaches in the league. And if you can't win with him, then it's time to look in your locker room and say, what can we do to improve our team, to improve it internally? Part of the problem with the Pacers right now is going forward, they don't really know who their core is. And I think they need to sort of rebuild the core at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what they're able to get on the open market. They're going to be talking to teams who feel like they're one player away. I think a lot of teams could use a Sabonis, 2-time All-Star. I think Miles Turner is a terrific player as the 5th option, but a defensive stalwart and rim protector for a team that's close. So we'll see what Kevin can pull off.
Let's see what I was going to. Ohio State, Rick. The rich get richer. I saw that they have now hired Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State. Right. They led the country in virtually every defensive category that of relevance. So they now have him, Kevin Wilson, Ryan Day in that tripod. And it's Michigan's fault. This is Michigan's fault, but it's an arms race now there And I talked about earlier with Texas going into the SEC and having that deal for the offensive linemen, because that's the only way they're going to compete. And if you're not cheating, if you go into the SEC, buddy, you better have your guns cocked and loaded. Oklahoma is kind of behind the deal with Lincoln Riley heading out. He's maybe you saw the writing on the wall, but Ohio State, man, that's going to make them a strong unit with Jim Knowles over there.
Yeah, all it takes is one loss a decade against Michigan. They go crazy. I think they look and see that they, after Georgia got beat by Alabama, that they just blew a great chance to win a national championship. And for them to see Michigan in the playoffs instead of them, they're not. That's what happens when you're obsessed with football. I mean, they didn't Ryan Day demote the defensive coordinator after like the second or third, after they lost to Oregon. He took away the play calling from the defensive coordinator and had an interim guy. So they're not going to wait around. But, even they are dealing with some turmoil. They've already had that two quarterbacks who've gone in the transfer portal, including the one kid. Came there to Texas and only played 2 snaps and had a huge NIL deal. I mean, he came in there to skip the senior year of high school and made some money. And now he's putting himself out there for where he can get the best NIL deal in Texas, whether it's to go to the Longhorns or go to Texas.
I thought he was going to Texas Tech.
It's not official yet. Some people think he's going to go. Sarkisian's making a big push for him to go to Texas. So, yeah, it's not official.
Well, every time we talk about college football, I feel like we need a shower afterwards.
What about the whole fiasco at Miami where they strung Manny Diaz out for all these days, and then they're paying him, like $7 million to go away. They paid Cristobal's buyout at Oregon. They're giving him $7 or $8 million to come coach the team. What's he ever done? I mean, he's not Nick Saban, or he's not even Brian Kelly. I mean, he might be good there. They hired him. I don't know. It's insanity.
Yeah, I wish somebody would pay me like, I don't know, $100 grand to go away. I'm gone.
I keep saying that. I say that every day. And I can't believe it hasn't happened.
Let's start passing the hat to get rid of Jim.
I'm telling you, I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm saying, surely, gosh, somebody wants me to go away. Some ironies. I talked about the OSU hire. Fresno State, Jeff Tedford, back at head coach. That's the head coach that left and caused the vacuum of Kalen DeBoer to go back out there. You would probably have Kalen DeBoer still here right now. He would probably be leaving this year, though, with all the coaching turmoil out there, because he was just too good. But you probably would have had him the last couple of years, and now you'd be starting mediocrity for IU football. So I don't know which is worse, but just kind of ironic. Then the LSU starting quarterback and his brother, who was a high-ranking tight end, in the portal after Brian Kelly goes to LSU. That's odd for your starting quarterback to leave, unless Brian Kelly had just said, dude, I don't like your style. We're going to do this and whatever, but it's just kind of odd.
Yeah, maybe he did some intel from other, places and said, you don't really want to play for Kelly. Kelly, although he was very successful at Notre Dame, I mean, has he put any guys in the NFL? I mean, Ian Book was okay, but is he a backup maybe in the NFL? It's not like Kelly has this track record of producing great quarterbacks.
True. But he does have a really cool Southern accent, doesn't he? That was the most pathetic, fraudulent thing I have ever seen in my life. Yeah. I'm just surprised he didn't roll out any y'alls.
Yeah, he showed up in Baton Rouge, and now he's Huey Long, man.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's got to be one of the funniest things. And someone tweeted a video of him talking about family up at Notre Dame right before that, and how he says family and then family. I'm like, dang, it sounds like my family down in North Carolina now.
It's interesting though. Like, I think only one of his coaches at Notre Dame has chosen to go with him.
Right. Tommy Rees decided to stay back. Yeah. Brian Polian.
I think that says a lot. They'd rather stay at Notre Dame with the players that they have relationships with and work for Marcus Freeman than go to LSU, where Brian Kelly. That's a questionable hire too, in my opinion.
You definitely have to take a shower when you go to LSU. At WDRB.com, I know you've got a piece up about Purdue, as they reached number 1 for the first time in the program's 100 and however many years they've been playing basketball. They were finally number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I just give Matt Painter credit in a world where most of the top programs have one and dones, all these 5-star dudes, transfer portal guys. He has no players in the transfer portal. He's got no 5-stars. He's got no one and dones, and I know Ivy might go after his second year. I think I wrote the only guys that they had that were top 100 recruits, and Ivy was barely one at 89, were first Kaufman, Wren, who's redshirting, and Ivy. Everybody else wasn't even a top 100 recruit.
Right.
It's an old-fashioned college basketball team. He identified players that other schools overlooked or didn't want, developed them, and they play refreshing basketball where they defend and share the ball. All credit to Matt Painter.
And you've got guys that want to go there and play for him.
Especially big guys.
Especially
big guys.
Can you name another coach that's found guys like Isaac Haas and Matt Harms and Zach Edey? Three guys who were nobody really wanted who've come into Purdue and become, functional players, and Edey's going to probably be a pro.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Oh, yeah, he's 7'4"?
7'4", 295, and I think he's shooting like 70%, 70-some% at the line.
Wow, now that is for a big guy, that's shocking. It is shooting free throws for big guys is probably one of the toughest things in the world because of the different trajectory. I mean,
Right.
You're not, for most guys, it's just a different arc, and they're almost shooting down at the rim if they extend upwards.
Well, remember, Indiana took Grant Gilon from that Crown Point team, and Purdue took Sasha Stevanovic.
Oops.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah, there you go. So make sure you go to WDRB.com and pick up all of what Rick's got out there. There's plenty more in addition to that. You can get information about the saga going on with Vince Tyra down there as well. So, and then he also puts out his weekly AP ballot, which is, I like that you do that. Not everybody doesn't, and I like that you do. I appreciate you that you do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
People complaining, were complaining before the loss this year because it's about Indiana. And I'm like, I kept looking at the KenPom numbers and they were kind of mirroring where they were in the AP poll.
Right.
So, and they still do. So it's until Indiana has some work to do to get up to that, Bob.
I mean, if they beat Wisconsin on the road, they got a chance to make
They
it.
got a chance. Yeah, absolutely.
They got a chance.
Hey, Jim, real quick. Yeah, can I promote something I got coming up tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Please?
I was getting ready to come to you next.
All right. I got a piece, a long Q&A with Reggie Miller. I went out to New York recently, and the NBA does its top 75 players. The Athletic has also done that. Reggie Miller comes in at number 47. I went out to New York to his hotel. We hung out for about an hour and a half, and really interesting stuff from Uncle Reggie. I thought he was terrific, and I hope people will take a look at it in the Athletic.
Absolutely.
Where's he living now?
He still lives in California. Yeah, Malibu. Strangely enough.
No home in Indiana?
He says he doesn't have a place in Indiana any longer.
Does he come back very often?
Not too frequently. Like he said, there's not a lot of TNT games in Indiana, right now. So, yeah. So now he doesn't get back a lot, but he made very clear that his heart, it was and is here, and why he decided to stay here his entire career. People forget in 2007, maybe it was, he had a chance to join the Boston Celtics, who had just, they put Pierce and Garnett and Allen together, and they ended up winning a championship. And Reggie was given the opportunity to do some ring chasing, and he decided not to. And his answer for not doing it is really good stuff. So, yeah, if you're a Pacers fan, a Reggie fan, check it out.
Yeah, just Reggie's one of those guys that just you have to love. I do, and love reading about him. So make sure you go to the Athletic and read up on that, or also about the Colts as they are trying to get the playoffs. Man, they are still trying. They've got an outside shot still, Bob.
Oh, they got a good shot. I mean, 50. What are they? I think it's like 53% or something like that, according to people who know math. But look, if they can win their AFC games, if they can knock off both New England and the Raiders, they're in really good shape. But they got the bye week this week, so that's good. So does New England. They got the bye week as well, and that's going to be. I mean, it's nice to see Colts Patriots being an important game once again, because man, for 15 years that was it. That was the marquee NFL must-see TV appointment viewing, the whole bit. It hasn't been that way recently, but this is going to be one of those games that bring back some memories.
You think the Patriots will throw it more than 3 times?
I think they will. I got a funny story for next week. I mean, I think it's funny. I haven't read it yet. So I talked to Chuck Pagano. Remember the fake punt against the Patriots many years ago? So probably the worst play of all time, the worst conceived and executed play of all time. And Chuck was hilarious. He was great. He said, when they put me in my final suit and they put me in the ground, they'll be saying, fake punt, fake punt.
He should hold up a little pennant that says fake punt in the casket.
Yeah,
be great.
poor guy. So I got that coming. And also real quick, I went up to Grand Rapids, Michigan.
You've been traveling.
Yeah, I've been traveling. Went to Grand Rapids and hooked up with Lance Stevenson, who's playing in the G
wow.
League up there. And Lance is always good for a story, and he's doing really well up there, and he still has that dream of coming back someday.
Well, make sure you go to The Athletic to read all of that, and it's good stuff. I promise you. Be a subscriber. I am. Also, WDRB.com for everything from Rick Bozich and more. But great stuff there. Guys, I cannot thank you enough. Look forward to this. You guys are one of the highlights of the week.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Jim, good to see you.
You too, guys. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you